Chosen one, the end of your search for love is closer than you think, not necessarily because a specific person is about to arrive on some predetermined schedule, but because the search itself, the particular way you have been approaching it, may finally be ready to shift into something considerably more peaceful and effective than however you have been searching until now. Stay with this message. Something about love, connection, or partnership has likely felt exhausting or uncertain recently, a search that has continued longer than you initially hoped, leaving you wondering whether genuine, lasting connection remains available to you at all. This message exists to offer honest reflection on this particular search, rather than empty promise disconnected from your actual experience and circumstances. Breathe slowly. Let your shoulders soften. Whatever weight this particular search has been carrying, set it down for these next several minutes, because what follows deserves genuine presence rather than the passing, distracted engagement most content receives during an ordinary day. Consider what this particular search has actually looked like for you personally, honestly, without minimizing whatever genuine difficulty it has involved. Perhaps it has looked like repeated disappointment, connections that seemed promising initially but ultimately did not develop into the lasting relationship you genuinely hoped for. Perhaps it has looked like prolonged loneliness, extended periods without genuine romantic connection despite genuine desire for it. Perhaps it has looked like confusion, uncertainty about what you are actually looking for, or why previous relationships have not worked despite genuine effort and good intention on your part. Reflect on which of these, or something similar, most accurately describes your own particular experience of this search. Whatever specific form it has taken, this message is speaking directly to that experience, offering honest reflection rather than vague, generic encouragement disconnected from your actual, lived circumstances and history. Take genuine time with this reflection before continuing further, allowing yourself to actually notice the specific texture of your own particular experience, rather than moving quickly toward whatever category first felt applicable. Sometimes the most accurate description combines several elements simultaneously, and naming this combination honestly, rather than forcing your experience into a single, simplified category, tends to produce more useful, accurate self-understanding as you continue through the remainder of this reflection. The particular way many people approach searching for love, however unintentionally, often works against the very connection they genuinely hope to find. Approaching this search from a place of anxious scarcity, believing genuine connection is rare and difficult to find, tends to produce behavior that inadvertently pushes potential connection away, whether through excessive neediness, premature attachment, or simply the kind of guarded anxiety that makes genuine, relaxed connection considerably more difficult to develop naturally. Picture the specific difference between meeting someone while feeling generally content and secure in your own life, compared to meeting someone while feeling desperate for the search to finally end. The same person, the same conversation, the same initial connection often unfolds quite differently depending on which internal state you bring into it, since desperation tends to project itself subtly, even when not explicitly spoken, in ways that potential partners often sense intuitively, even without being able to name exactly what feels slightly off about the interaction. Consider whether this particular pattern has been operating in your own search, whether anxious scarcity has shaped how you approach potential connections, perhaps moving too quickly out of fear this opportunity might be rare, perhaps holding back too cautiously out of fear of being hurt again. Perhaps simply carrying enough anxiety about the overall search that potential partners sense this anxiety and find it difficult to feel genuinely comfortable and relaxed within your presence. This particular anxiety often develops through genuine, understandable past experience, previous disappointments or heartbreaks that taught real, if sometimes overly generalized, lessons about romantic connection and its potential risks. Understanding where this anxiety originated does not require dismissing it as irrational or unfounded. It simply invites honest examination of whether this anxiety, formed through specific past circumstances, continues accurately reflecting your current, actual situation and prospects, or whether it has become somewhat disproportionate to your genuine current circumstances and capabilities. Reflect on what specific past experience might connect to your current anxiety regarding this particular search, examining whether the lesson that experience taught continues accurately applying to your present circumstances, or whether some genuine updating of that lesson might now be warranted given everything you have learned and grown since that particular experience originally occurred. The end of a genuinely difficult search sometimes requires releasing certain beliefs about what you are looking for, beliefs that may have developed through comparison to unrealistic cultural narratives about romantic connection, through specific past relationships that shaped your expectations in ways that may not genuinely serve your actual, current well-being, or through simply absorbing certain ideas about romantic connection without ever fully, consciously examining whether they genuinely reflect what would actually make you happy in a lasting, healthy relationship. Consider what specific beliefs about ideal romantic partnership you currently hold, examining honestly whether they reflect genuine, considered understanding of what actually matters most for your own particular happiness and well-being, or whether some of them might reflect external influence, whether cultural narrative, family expectation, or simply comparison to others' relationships that may not actually represent what would genuinely serve your own specific needs and values. Genuine readiness for lasting partnership often requires more than simply wanting a partner, requiring instead genuine internal work that creates the actual capacity to build and sustain a healthy relationship once genuine connection eventually develops. This does not mean you must achieve some form of complete personal perfection before genuine partnership becomes possible. It simply means examining honestly whether specific patterns within yourself might currently be limiting your capacity for the kind of genuine, sustained intimacy healthy partnership actually requires. Consider whether patterns of excessive self-reliance, difficulty trusting others, or difficulty communicating your genuine needs clearly might currently be limiting your capacity for genuine partnership. Patterns worth examining honestly rather than assuming any relationship difficulty must simply reflect bad luck or the wrong specific partners rather than something genuinely worth examining within your own particular patterns and approach. The specific quality of connections you have experienced during this particular search deserves honest examination as well, since patterns within these past connections often reveal important information about what genuinely needs attention before lasting partnership becomes more readily accessible. Consider whether a specific pattern has repeated across multiple previous connections, whether consistently choosing partners who are emotionally unavailable, consistently struggling with the same specific difficulty within otherwise different relationships, or consistently finding yourself drawn toward connection that ultimately proves unsustainable for similar underlying reasons across different specific circumstances. Reflect honestly on whether any such pattern has been present within your own particular search, naming it clearly if it has, since clearly named patterns become considerably more workable than patterns left vague and unexamined, continuing to operate unconsciously without ever receiving the direct attention that might genuinely help interrupt and shift them moving forward. Genuine readiness for lasting connection sometimes requires releasing a specific relationship or connection that has been quietly occupying emotional space without ever developing into genuine, healthy partnership, whether an ex-partner you have not fully released emotionally, a current situationship that provides some connection while genuinely preventing full availability for something more sustainable, or simply an idealized fantasy about a specific past connection that continues occupying space that could otherwise become available for genuine, present partnership. Consider whether any such connection currently occupies emotional space within your own particular life, deserving honest examination regarding whether genuinely releasing it might create the necessary space for something more sustainable and healthy to eventually develop. The search for love often benefits considerably from examining your relationship with your own singleness, since chronic dissatisfaction with being single, treating this current period purely as an obstacle to overcome rather than a genuine, meaningful chapter worth living fully in its own right, often creates a subtle desperation that potential partners sense and find difficult to feel genuinely comfortable and relaxed around. Consider what it would mean to genuinely build a fulfilling, meaningful life during this current period, independent of romantic partnership, rather than treating your current circumstances purely as a temporary, unsatisfying waiting period before your genuine life supposedly begins once partnership finally arrives. This shift does not mean abandoning genuine desire for partnership. It simply means releasing the specific desperation that often accompanies treating singleness purely as deficiency, replacing it with genuine engagement with your current, actual life alongside continued openness toward eventual partnership. Genuine connection often develops more naturally once a person has released excessive attachment to specific outcomes, timelines, or particular types of partners, allowing genuine compatibility and connection to develop organically rather than forcing potential connections into predetermined categories or timelines that may not actually reflect how genuine, lasting connection actually tends to develop in most people's actual, lived experience. Consider whether you have been holding excessively rigid expectations regarding timeline, specific partner characteristics, or the particular circumstances under which genuine connection should develop, expectations worth examining honestly regarding whether they genuinely reflect what matters most for lasting happiness, or whether some of them might actually be limiting genuine connections that do not precisely match your current, specific expectations despite potentially offering genuine, lasting compatibility and happiness. The specific role that vulnerability plays in developing genuine, lasting connection deserves honest examination as well, since genuine intimacy inevitably requires risking vulnerability, sharing your authentic self rather than a carefully curated, protected version designed to minimize risk of rejection or disappointment. If vulnerability has felt particularly difficult within your own particular search, this deserves gentle, honest examination rather than continued avoidance, since genuine partnership ultimately requires this kind of authentic vulnerability in order to develop into something genuinely lasting and fulfilling. Reflect honestly on your own particular relationship with vulnerability within romantic connection, examining whether you tend toward genuine, gradual openness as trust develops, or whether you tend toward more consistent guardedness that, while genuinely protective, may also be limiting the depth of connection that becomes possible within your particular relationships and connections. Support during this particular process often proves valuable, since working through patterns that have limited genuine connection sometimes benefits considerably from additional perspective beyond what individual reflection alone can fully provide. Consider whether a trusted friend, or professional support such as a therapist specifically experienced in relationship patterns, might offer valuable additional guidance as you continue examining and working through whatever specific patterns this reflection has helped you identify. The end of a genuinely difficult search does not necessarily mean the search itself will complete instantly the moment you finish this particular reflection. It more likely means that continued, honest engagement with whatever this reflection has helped you identify will gradually shift how you approach connection moving forward, creating genuinely different, more favorable conditions for lasting partnership to eventually develop, even though the specific timeline for that development remains genuinely uncertain and cannot be precisely predicted or guaranteed. Consider what specific practical step might represent genuine engagement with whatever this reflection has helped you identify, something you could begin today or within the next few days, translating this reflection into actual, concrete action rather than allowing it to remain purely theoretical. Another interesting reflection quickly forgotten once your attention shifts toward whatever comes next in your ordinary day. Doubt likely has arisen at some point during this reflection, questioning whether this message's central invitation genuinely applies to your own specific situation, or whether it simply represents generic encouragement offered broadly without genuine connection to your particular circumstances. This doubt deserves honest acknowledgement rather than automatic dismissal, though it also deserves genuine examination rather than uncritical acceptance as necessarily representing the complete truth of the matter. Consider whether your own doubt reflects genuine, careful evaluation concluding that none of these particular patterns genuinely apply to your current circumstances, or whether it reflects something else, perhaps discomfort with genuinely examining your own particular patterns honestly, manifesting specifically as skepticism toward the message itself rather than genuine, honest engagement with whatever this reflection might actually reveal about your own particular search and approach. Genuine readiness for lasting connection often develops gradually, requiring patience alongside continued, deliberate engagement rather than either passive waiting or anxious, forceful striving that often works against the very connection being sought. Consider what it would mean to hold both genuine patience and genuine, active engagement simultaneously, continuing to take reasonable, deliberate steps toward greater readiness while also releasing excessive anxiety about controlling exactly when and how genuine connection eventually develops and arrives. This particular balance, active engagement alongside genuine patience, tends to prove considerably more effective than either extreme alone, whether passive waiting that involves no genuine engagement or examination, or anxious, forceful striving that often produces exactly the kind of desperate energy that tends to work against genuine, healthy connection developing naturally and organically over time. The specific quality of relationships you already have in your life, beyond romantic partnership specifically, deserves honest examination as well, since patterns within friendships and family relationships often mirror, at least partially, patterns that also show up within romantic connection. Consider whether specific patterns already visible within your non-romantic relationships might offer valuable insight into patterns also likely operating within your romantic search, patterns worth addressing more broadly rather than assuming they apply exclusively to romantic connection alone. Genuine, lasting connection often develops most readily once a person has cultivated a healthy, secure relationship with themselves, since this kind of internal security typically allows genuine, relaxed presence within romantic connection, rather than the anxious, seeking energy that develops when romantic partnership is expected to provide security and validation that has not yet been genuinely cultivated internally, independent of partnership itself. Reflect on your own particular relationship with yourself, examining honestly whether you currently possess a genuine, secure sense of your own worth and capability, independent of romantic partnership, or whether significant portions of your self-worth currently remain contingent on eventually finding partnership. A pattern worth examining honestly since it often creates exactly the kind of anxious energy that tends to work against genuine, healthy connection developing naturally. What genuinely changes once these particular patterns receive honest attention extends well beyond simply increasing the likelihood of eventually finding lasting partnership, though this remains a genuine, valuable benefit worth acknowledging directly. Working through these particular patterns typically also produces considerable benefit for overall well-being and self-understanding, benefit that remains valuable and meaningful regardless of exactly when, or in what specific form, lasting romantic partnership eventually develops within your particular life and circumstances. Consider what this broader benefit might genuinely mean to you personally, recognizing that this particular reflection, and whatever continued work it inspires, offers value considerably beyond simply its potential to eventually support romantic partnership specifically, extending into overall well-being, self-understanding, and capacity for genuine intimacy and connection across all your relationships, not merely romantic ones specifically. Consider the specific role that your physical and emotional well-being plays throughout this particular search, since chronic exhaustion, unaddressed stress, or significant emotional depletion genuinely limits available capacity for the kind of relaxed, genuine presence that healthy connection typically requires. If your own well-being has been neglected recently amid the energy this search genuinely requires, consider prioritizing renewed attention to these basic foundations, recognizing that sustainable, healthy connection typically develops more readily from a place of genuine personal well-being rather than depletion. Reflect, too, on what specific role your current environment and social circle play in either supporting or complicating this particular search, since environment genuinely shapes opportunity and mindset considerably more than most people initially recognize. Consider whether your current environment offers genuine opportunity for meeting potential partners who share your particular values and interests, or whether some adjustment to your current environment or social engagement might genuinely support this particular search more effectively. Examine what specific role comparison to others' relationships plays in your own experience of this search, since measuring your particular timeline against friends, family, or social media portrayals of others' relationships often generates unnecessary additional distress without providing any genuinely useful information about your own actual circumstances and prospects. Consider releasing this comparison as consistently as you genuinely can, redirecting your attention instead toward your own specific journey and progress. Consider, as well, what specific role your own communication patterns play within developing connections, since genuine, healthy communication, including the capacity to express needs clearly, set appropriate boundaries, and navigate disagreement constructively, significantly influences whether initial connection successfully develops into lasting, healthy partnership. Reflect honestly on your own particular communication patterns within past and current connections, examining whether specific patterns might benefit from continued development and attention. Explore, too, what specific role your own definition of success within this particular search plays in your overall experience of it, since defining success purely as achieving a specific relationship status by a specific timeline often generates unnecessary pressure and disappointment. Consider what it would mean to define success more broadly, including genuine personal growth, increased self-awareness, and healthier patterns developed throughout this process, alongside whatever specific outcome regarding partnership eventually develops. A final significant consideration remains before this message moves toward its close. This particular search, however long and difficult it has genuinely felt, does not indicate that lasting, healthy partnership remains permanently unavailable to you. It simply indicates that certain patterns, whether within your approach to searching, within your own internal readiness, or within specific beliefs and expectations you currently hold, may benefit from the kind of honest examination this reflection has been encouraging throughout its content. Release whatever shame or self-criticism might have accumulated regarding how long this particular search has continued without yet reaching the resolution you genuinely hope for. Shame does not accelerate genuine readiness. It simply adds unnecessary additional weight on top of whatever difficulty already exists within this particular search. Approach this moment instead with genuine self-compassion, recognizing that difficulty within romantic searching is an extremely common human experience, alongside genuine readiness to continue engaging honestly with whatever this particular reflection has helped illuminate. Before this message reaches its true close, take one final moment for yourself, genuinely absorbing what has emerged throughout this reflection rather than rushing immediately toward whatever comes next in your day. Name, specifically, whatever pattern this reflection has helped you identify as most relevant to your own particular search. Name, specifically, one small step you might take within the next few days, beginning to genuinely address this particular pattern rather than continuing to search without this kind of honest, deliberate engagement and reflection. This does not need to feel dramatic or overwhelming in order to matter significantly. It simply needs to feel genuine, honest engagement with whatever this reflection has helped illuminate, rather than either dismissing this content entirely or expecting immediate, complete resolution of patterns that have likely developed over an extended period and will therefore likely require continued, patient attention over time as well. Trust that this particular message reached you today for a genuine reason, connecting specifically to something real and present within your own actual experience, rather than arriving randomly or without genuine relevance to your particular circumstances. Something in you recognized enough significance to continue reading this far, past the point where you might have dismissed this message entirely had it genuinely carried no connection to anything real currently present within your own life and ongoing search for lasting connection. Consider, too, what it might mean to continue this particular reflection beyond today, returning periodically to examine whether the patterns identified throughout this message continue genuinely applying, or whether new patterns and insights continue emerging as you proceed with your ongoing search and personal development throughout this particular period of your life. Reflect, as well, on how you will handle the inevitable moments of doubt or discouragement that are likely to arise as this search continues, moments when the clarity or hope you feel right now begins to feel more distant amid continued difficulty or disappointment. These moments of doubt do not indicate that your original reflection was somehow mistaken. They simply reflect the natural fluctuation that accompanies any genuine process of significant personal growth, particularly regarding something as significant and emotionally charged as the search for lasting romantic connection. Consider what specific support might genuinely help sustain your continued engagement with this process beyond today, whether through a trusted friend who can offer genuine encouragement and perspective, professional support if the patterns this reflection has helped identify feel significant enough to warrant additional guidance, or simply a consistent personal practice of honest self-reflection that helps you continue noticing and addressing relevant patterns as they arise throughout your ongoing life and continued search. Consider what specific obstacles are most likely to arise as you continue this process beyond today, obstacles worth anticipating now rather than being caught entirely unprepared when they eventually arise. Discouragement following a specific disappointing connection that might tempt you to abandon this particular reflective work entirely. Old patterns resurfacing with surprising intensity, particularly during moments of loneliness or renewed hope regarding a specific new connection. Whatever specific obstacle feels most likely for your own particular situation, briefly considering in advance how you might respond to it can help you navigate it more effectively when it actually arises. Think about what genuine progress will actually look like over the coming months, recognizing that patterns developed over years typically require considerably more than a single reflection to fully shift and resolve. Progress more often looks like continued, gradual development, increased self-awareness, and incrementally healthier patterns within your connections and search, rather than one dramatic, complete transformation occurring all at once within a compressed, easily identifiable time frame. Consider, too, what specific record you might keep as you continue this process beyond today, whether through journaling about your continued reflections and observations, or simply maintaining conscious, ongoing awareness of the specific patterns this reflection has helped you identify as you continue moving through your ongoing search and personal development. This kind of continued documentation and awareness often proves valuable, allowing you to look back with genuine clarity at how your understanding and patterns have continued developing over time. Reflect, finally, on what it would mean to trust this particular process, even without complete certainty about exactly when or how lasting partnership will eventually develop within your own particular life and circumstances. Trust here does not mean passive certainty that everything will resolve exactly as hoped, without any need for continued reflection, effort, or intentional engagement on your part. It means a kind of active, engaged trust, continuing to examine and address relevant patterns honestly while also releasing the exhausting need for complete certainty about exactly when and how this particular search will eventually reach its own genuine, satisfying resolution. There is one more layer worth adding before this message truly comes to its close, something practical that ties everything shared today into sustained, meaningful engagement over the coming weeks and months ahead, ensuring this reflection actually translates into genuinely different patterns rather than remaining simply another moment of temporary insight quickly forgotten once ordinary daily demands reassert their usual claim on your attention. Consider what specific weekly practice might help you maintain honest, ongoing engagement with whatever patterns this reflection has helped you identify, something brief and sustainable rather than elaborate and likely to be abandoned once initial motivation naturally diminishes over time. Perhaps a specific evening each week, honestly reviewing any romantic interactions from that particular week, noticing whether old patterns continued operating or whether genuine, new approaches began emerging instead. Reflect on what specific evidence of genuine progress you might reasonably look for over the coming months, evidence that would help confirm authentic change is actually occurring, even when that change unfolds gradually rather than through one single, dramatic moment of complete transformation. Perhaps increased comfort with vulnerability within developing connections. Perhaps a growing capacity to notice, in real time, when old anxious patterns begin activating, catching them earlier than you previously could. Perhaps simply a general sense of greater peace regarding this particular search, distinct from whether any specific outcome has yet developed. Consider, too, what specific role continued self-compassion plays as you develop these particular patterns, since genuine change regarding deeply established relational patterns typically requires patience and gentleness with yourself throughout the process, rather than harsh self-criticism when old patterns inevitably resurface periodically despite genuine effort and intention toward change. Explore what specific conversations you might need to have with people close to you as this process continues developing, whether sharing with a trusted friend that you are working on these particular patterns, creating helpful accountability, or having specific conversations with a potential partner regarding your own particular growth and self-awareness as genuine connection begins developing. Consider what specific boundaries might need to be established or reinforced as you continue this particular process, recognizing that genuine, healthy connection sometimes requires releasing certain patterns of accommodation or excessive flexibility that may have previously characterized your approach to developing romantic connection, patterns that, while perhaps intended to increase likability or connection, may have actually prevented the kind of authentic, honest connection that lasting partnership genuinely requires. Reflect, too, on what specific self-talk patterns you want to consciously cultivate as you continue this particular journey, replacing whatever harsh, dismissive internal narrative may have previously accompanied this search, whether related to your own worthiness of love or the general availability of genuine connection, with language that supports genuine hope and continued healthy engagement, without either denying genuine past difficulty or generating unrealistic, forced optimism. Disconnected from your actual, honest experience. Consider what it would mean to view this particular search as an ongoing journey of self-discovery and growth, rather than solely a problem requiring one-time, complete resolution after which the matter becomes permanently settled. Genuine relational patterns, like most meaningful personal capacities, typically continue developing and deepening throughout life, even after lasting partnership has been established, meaning the work this reflection has encouraged today offers value considerably beyond simply its potential to eventually support finding a partner. Consider, finally, what specific role gratitude might play throughout this continued process, not gratitude that denies genuine difficulty or loneliness, but gratitude that exists honestly alongside continued searching, perhaps gratitude for the genuine self-awareness this particular reflection has offered, perhaps gratitude for whatever supportive relationships, romantic or otherwise, already exist within your current life, perhaps simply gratitude for your own continued willingness to engage honestly with this challenging, significant area of your life despite whatever genuine difficulty it has involved. This message reached you today for a reason. Trust that. Carry it with you. And when you are ready, not before, not because anyone told you to, but when you are genuinely ready, take your next step. Deep down, you already know what that step is. Thank you for receiving this message today. Be gentle with yourself as you continue this particular search, one honest, deliberate step at a time.